focus on the subnational today is on Yobe State in northeast Nigeria. We've been joined on the program by the Commissioner for Basic and Secondary Education or Secondary Schools in Yobe State, Associate Professor Aide Adam, joining us via Zoom. Prof, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you so much, and good morning.
Good morning. The issue of out of school, I think I read somewhere, if the data is not correct, maybe you can just give us the accurate data. About 43% or so, there were specific figures given as to the level or number of out of school children in Yobe State. So let's just put it above 40 or 30% in terms of how many children are not in school. What has been the implication of this particular situation in Yobe State?
One of the major issues that need to be settled first before we go into the matter is that we need to know actually what is the definition of out-of-school child. Out-of-school children sometimes have different meanings, and people are misquoting them sometimes. Out-of-school child is a child that has not enrolled in any formal school, and they are in three different categories. Number one, a child that has never been enrolled at all. Number two, a child that has dropped out of school. He was once in school, but due to some circumstances dropped out of school. And then number three, a child that is attending school irregularly. For example, he will attend today, the next day he will be on the streets. So, however, most of the statistics going around giving the actual number of out of school children in Nigeria are questionable. We are questioning the reliability and authenticity of those figures. For example, the Tribune newspaper, and this is the most circulated figures, place, for example, Kebbi as number one with 67%, Sokoto as number two with 66%, and Yobe number three with 62%. However, if you go through the actual figure, you find that the Tribune newspaper is quoting the cable index. And the cable index got these statistics from the Nigeria Multidimensional Poverty Index. The question here is that the source of this figure is the Nigeria Multidimensional Poverty Index. The question is, how is it possible for an agency that is responsible for assessing the poverty rate in Nigeria to have access to education to the extent of giving exact figure of out-of-school children? So this is actually very questionable. The second figure given is that of the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, which placed the out-of-school children in Yobe at 43%. That is 427,230 student children are out of school. Okay, if you take this number, according to Yobe State Technical Committee on Almajiri Reform, there are at least 3,000 almajiri schools in Yobe State with over 180,000 students. So if you are to remove 180,000 almajiri students, because we made a clear distinction between a child that is enrolled in school and the child that is not enrolled. So out of school child is the child that has never been enrolled in any form of school. Almajiri schools are schools that are having their students, but the difference is that that form of education has not been formally recognized by the National Policy on Education. However, they are in school, they are not out of school children. So if you are to remove 180,000 from the 427,230 given by the Nigeria's National Bureau of Statistics, you have at least 247,230, and this is representing 24%. And this percentage that we are talking about, we are not talking about the percentage of the entire population. No, this is the percentage of children of school age, that is between 5 to 16 years. So actually, these are some of the contradictions we are facing.
All right, so, Prof, so you give us what the government has. You've disputed literally as many numbers and dichotomized them. You even mentioned loss in transition students. That's what you mean by people perhaps who couldn't further their education for whatever reason, maybe financial or insurgency, or some of the reasons alluded to that. So what exactly is government putting out or having as data for out of school children in Yobe State? So we can work with your figures at least for a moment.
Let me give you another example before quoting the actual figure of out of school children in Yobe State. According to the Maternal, Newborn and Child Health Program, This is a UK-based organization that is working in Nigeria. They said that 48% of the total population of Yobe State is between the age of 15 and below. And this 48% is about 1,751,000. So if you are to take this and then remove or subtract the number given by the National Bureau of Statistics, you have at least a total enrollment of about 1,370,000 students that are formally enrolled in school. And those that are out of school are actually 247,230. And this is what we have even in our annual school census report of the 2024. So the formal number adopted by the state government based on the annual school census conducted by the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education in Yobe State, the actual number stands at 247,230, which is representing 24% of the total school-age children in the state.
So in essence, are you saying that there is no need to raise the alarm or declare some sort of emergency for education, particularly with these out-of-school children figures which you now quote?
Actually, the state is under a state of emergency. His Excellency Honorable Mai Malabuni declared state of emergency on the 29th May 2019, the day he was sworn in as the governor. So working on this, Yobe State has suffered quite a long time during the Boko Haram insurgency, and most of the students that are categorized as out-of-school children are actually school dropouts, because when there is attack in a particular town, most of these bandits, most of these insurgents attack school facilities. When they attack schools, they kill students, they kill teachers. The rest of them will now run and migrate, leaving their own hometown. And when they leave their own hometown and migrate to a different place, before they are able to settle down, they will be going to actually internally displaced persons camp. And those are also categorized as out-of-school children, but actually they were school dropout students. And another point is that working on this number, I know probably from 2019 to date, the number has drastically dropped. It was previously over about 427,000, as I said. But now, when you subtract this, you realize that from the time state of emergency was declared in the state to this year, to the last year, 2024, you realize that there is a significant improvement in taking these children back to school. Some of them, we are building schools for them, and some of them, we are constituting or establishing a non-formal schools for them. For example, most of them suffered from the poverty as a result of they lost their businesses, they lost their hometown, so they have to work in order to earn a living. What we are doing, by the time they go and work in the morning, in the afternoon, we take the school to them. We make the schools hours to be flexible in such a way that most of them will have access to quality education. And as of last year, over 1,700 of those children have been formally enrolled into junior secondary school after giving them what we call accelerated basic education program.
The point of this conversation is for years now we've grappled with the challenge of insecurity, and it's been said that when these children are found idle on the streets, it's easy to recruit them, radicalize them, and use them for attacks. And some have said that's one of the reasons that you have banditry, terrorism still existing, sometimes thriving in communities in northern part of the country. But I want to know, for you, or at least for your state government, do you consider almajiri as out of school? The ones on the streets now as out of school children as well, but they're meant to be in almajiri system.
Almajiris are not out of school children. They are children in a school not recognized by the National Policy on Education. That is why at the beginning of the conversation, I said we need to identify who is out of school child. An out of school child is a child that has never been enrolled in any form of school. So this, for historical purposes, do you know that these almajiri schools were the public schools during the Sokoto Caliphate? Those are the government schools. And that is why most of these traditional schools are maintained. And that is why you realize that there is a pressure from the almajiri schools for them to be formally recognized. Because by recognizing them formally, we are we will have the access of at least reviewing the curriculum of the school, injecting some of the modern subjects like English, mathematics, or at least injecting some skills that will be acquired
Commissioner,
during the program.
pardon me to just clarify, just reiterate what I said. We know the almajiri system, but I'm talking about the ones on the street, and they'll tell you that they actually belong to an almajiri school in that sense, but they are on the streets either begging or just trying to get something to feed, because perhaps a person in charge of that almajiri school is not able to fend for them. They're not getting donations and all of that. So he just says, well, it's a no-brainer. Go out there, see what you can get for yourself. Those are the ones I am referring to. Those ones are on the street begging, but they belong to the almajiri system.
The ones you see on the street are divided into two. Some of them are actually out-of-school children, but they use the name of almajiri because in northern Nigeria, almajiri has a special respect because it's a person who's dedicated his time in studying the Quran. While the second part of those that are moving on the street are those almajiris, the actual almajiris. After study hours in the morning, from morning to afternoon, then they will now go and look for a living. That is why His Excellency Honorable Malabuni has brought initiatives in feeding the almajiri schools so that we will stop them from roaming the street and begging. However, when you have this problem that is a century-old problem, it cannot be solved within this short period of time, but we believe as time goes on, it will be reduced drastically.
So I'm thinking again in terms of trying to improve the almajiri system, because I see that you're making a very strong case for the almajiri system. I remember on the 60th birthday of the NNPCL GCAO, he did mention that it's a product of almajiri system of education. Do you think, Prof, that one of the best ways to start off before it's captured in our education policy is for the state themselves to begin to integrate some of these subjects that will make them have a wider view of the world so that they could be more relevant beyond the religious end?
Yes, you're right. But the challenges we are facing, these almajiri schools are so traditional in maintaining their method. Whenever sometimes you try to talk to them, bring them closer, show them the importance of adding some subjects into the school, some of them believe that you are here to hijack the school. You are here to distort the image of the school. So it is something that has to be done gradually by involving the actual heads of the school, calling them. That is why last year, for example, we have 2 conferences with them. We have several workshops for them. The importance of that is for us to inform them of the need of improving the curriculum of the school. You cannot live in the 21st century with the curriculum of the 19th or 18th century, for example. And most of them are responding to the call of the state government. That is why we have a special budget for all those that have responded. We are building, for example, hostels for them. We are building temporary sheds for them. And this, plus, in addition to the feeding program that is given to them, we hope as time goes, most of them will now respond to this so that the entire almajiri system will now be reformed. Most of the state governments have these initiatives, particularly Yobe states.
So let's now be clear. So we know the kind of intervention that the states are asking for. Sometimes people just imagine they know the solutions to problems, but you stayed there. At least the people know what they want and what will work for them. So it's important to diagnose from that end. So what is the proposal now? Are you saying, for us, what we want to have is the almajiri system, because historically, culturally, religious-wise, it's what works for us, and that's, maybe for you, has been proven. So let's do the almajiri. If you are in the South, you can do what they call Western education. Let us upgrade our own almajiri and make it what we want it to be. Is that what you're proposing? Is that the kind of fix that I think will work?
What I'm proposing is that we are working on improving the system, because almajiri school is a school that is teaching purely the Quran, how to read and write and how to commit the entire Quran into memory. What we believe is important is for us also to inject a modern subject into the school, so that besides memorizing the Holy Quran, besides committing the Holy Quran to memory, you also have a modern knowledge on how to interact with people. For example, a simple mathematics, a basic mathematics, a simple communication in English, some skills that will be added into the school. A child while studying in almajiri school, is also learning a particular skill, for example, carpentry, welding, or anything of that nature, so that instead of them after the school to go to the street and start begging, they will now, after the school, they will now go back to their workshop and start working, so that they can earn a living diligently without roaming the street and begging. This is number one. Number two is that some of the schools, in fact, we now have a modern almajiri school. We call them Islamia schools. These Islamia schools have integrated Western and Islamic education all together. That is why you find a child memorizing the Holy Quran, and also after graduation they have the access of studying medicine, engineering, public administration, and all these courses that are available in Nigeria. We are showing to these Nangaya schools that this is the model of school that we want almajiri school to turn into. However, the effort to resist is there, the pressure to resist is very much, and we are working our best to make sure that we reduce the number and then improve the curriculum and make sure that the curriculum is updated.
Rob, there's another part of the conversation I would like you to speak extensively to. You mentioned it in passing, but I want us to stay there for a moment so that we understand the extent of what we're dealing with here. Insurgency, terrorism has actually affected the state of education in that part of the region. To what extent has it affected Yobe State? I'm talking about level of destruction in terms of infrastructure. We've gone around the issue of how many people are in school and all of that.
You know, from 2019, from 2009 to 2019, it was estimated that at least half of the educational facilities in Yobe State were destroyed by the insurgents. That is why, as I said earlier, most of the students that are counted as out of school are actually school dropouts. But the governments of Yobe State, from the time of His Excellency Alhaji Ibrahim Gaidam up to the time of His Excellency Honorable Mala Buni, they have been working day and night. Whenever a school or school facility is destroyed, they rebuild it. Whenever people migrated and left their hometown, a school will be located where they migrated to. So most of the facilities have now been revamped and they have been renovated. Most of the first problem now we are facing is we have the teaching and learning materials. We have most of the construction is going on in many schools. The major problem is that some of the communities that have left their hometown, trying to take them back, most of them are resisting to go back. So if they cannot go back, we have no option but to construct a school where they are now camping. And this is some of the challenges we are facing in the education sector.
So we want to show you something, Commissioner. A lot of people are interested in this conversation, and one of our viewers says that he attended this school, Bendingeri Primary School in Damaturu, Yobe State, that's the capital, Damaturu, sent images of what is said to be the state of that school, without chairs, the students sitting on the floor, the pupils in this case. I would like you to just look at this. Can you confirm this? Is this something you're aware of? We, of course, blurred the faces of the children because they're minors, but you can see sitting on the floor. Is that something you're aware of, Commissioner?
Yes, you know, in Yobe State, I will give you one example. In Yobe State, most of the public schools, private schools are using public schools after working hours. So I don't want to be sure whether this is actually a government school or a private school that is operating in government schools. Most of the government schools, after working hours, they park the chairs, and then the private schools that are operating in the afternoon, from afternoon to evening, they come and occupy the classes. However, I don't want to say that we don't have such cases, but what I'm trying to say is that if a state can suffer from insurgency for a very long period of time, and then the only example they can produce as students sitting on the floor is just some one or two, I think it's a great achievement, because no government can solve the entire problem of education. What is important is that, yes, go ahead.
There are two issues here. The first issue has to do with the fact that the children are sitting on the floor, which we are trying to ask you to confirm. The second part is that this is in Damaturu, the Yobe State capital. The reason that is important is if this is happening in Damaturu, what happens in the other rural areas? It could be worse. So I wanted you to speak to that contextually.
Number one, I said I cannot verify this because probably we have, as I said, I cannot independently verify this picture. Number two, I said most of the private schools in our state capital and many local governments, private schools are operating in the afternoon after working hours. So I cannot confirm whether this is actually from a public school or from the private school operating in the public school after closing hours. The reason why we are allowing private school to operate in public buildings is to make sure that they also contribute their quota in reducing the number of out-of-school children. But independently, I cannot verify this. But what I say, let's assume that it is true. I think it is something that needs to be. Yes, go ahead.
Pardon me, we absolutely get that point. You're saying the glass is half full, not half empty. But are you promising us that right after this interview, you're going to intervene, check out that school, and fix whatever it is untoward about that?
Sure.
Are you giving that promise, and you will come back to us?
I am giving that. Immediately, I will send my people to go and verify, and then immediate action will be taken.
Well, that's cheery to hear. So we'll wait for the feedback on that one, because I mean, education is very important, and from the passion with which you speak, we expect that it is evident in what we see. But I think we can anchor at this point, Jeffrey.
I want to thank you so much, Associate Professor Abba Idris Adam, Commissioner for Basic and Secondary Schools in Yobe State. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, so we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we have more for you right here on the program. Join us again.